All right. We're live. We'll do it live. Let's podcast live. It's just past 2:00. We thank the Butcher's Market for sponsoring OG Live here on YouTube. The podcast will follow. We are not inside Eford Studios today due to inclement weather conditions. Although the sun's finally out, so I bet the roads will finally clear up a little bit here too. And it's finally stopped snowing. But you know what hasn't stopped, Joe? The snow might have stopped. You know what hasn't stopped? The OG Sports phone.
I was going to say the hate for Kevin Keats.
The OG Sports phone has not stopped.
Forever grateful. Get the fuck out.
Again, big thanks to the Butcher's Market for sponsoring OG Live. Check them out, thebutchersmarkets.com. Maybe if you're done watching NC State basketball and you have all this time, because you're not going to need it for the ACC tournament, you're not going to need it for the NCAA tournament, learn how to smoke a brisket. You know, go to the Butcher's Market, get yourself some meat, and go from there. Anyway, do you want to start with some leftover sports phone calls, or do you want to start with something that Kevin Keats said last night after losing to North Carolina and a path forward for Keats at NC State?
Yeah, it wasn't a great messaging night from Kevin, so we might as well start there.
All right, this is from Pack Pride. They pulled the video, I believe. I forgot who it was from Pack Pride that was there that was asking him this question. But this is about momentum. It's actually something that we got into on the After Dark last night, something that I had put on social media today, that what's probably driving everybody insane with the Wolfpack right now. Yeah, losing the way that you did to North Carolina in Chapel Hill, that's the easy thing. That's the easy thing to point to. But I think most of the angst that's coming out is what turned into a situation you could have flipped, right? Like, hey, man, this guy was probably going to get let go after the ACC tournament had they not come back against Louisville. Instead, they go on this run. They win the championship. They get to the Final Four. And all the things that kick in after that, you then come out with messaging and say, all right, here's your path forward. This is the momentum. We're going to get the NIL right. We're going to make these decisions. We're going to utilize this to our advantage. You see this all the time with schools. They go on these runs. They get a bunch of limelight. Then it's your job as the university and the coach to take that limelight and move it forward. Unfortunately for NC State, that did not happen. And Keats was asked about this last night in terms of losing momentum from the Final Four, and I thought the exchange was interesting.
Are you worried that you've lost the momentum from last year's tournament run at all?
Momentum in which way? When you say that, which part? Because it's several different ways,
Just as a program in general.
I don't think so as a program because we play hard. But we also, you think about this, part of it is the landscape has changed around us. And what I mean by that, if you went to the Final Four, you won the ACC, you could get any player, not any player, but most of the players you wanted because of that. But when you add the NIL part to it, none of that matters because you can flip a team just like that, part of it. And so the disappointment is, hey, if we didn't have NIL like it is now, hell, we might have a different set of group of guys because of the fact that they're coming just because they want an education, they want a chance to play at NC State, they want to play in our style. But now it's not about that. It's what can you provide, financially. And I get it. Trust me, this is not a rant to say I'm against NIL because I am. But that has to match your winning in order for you to get there.
But here's the part, Joe, that I don't. Again, that was from Pack Pride. They put it on YouTube. Appreciate that clip. The part that I don't understand is, well, I understand what Keats is saying in the old days. This is how you would use a championship and a Final Four run to build momentum. But the thing about the old days is they're the old days, and it's not been the old days for quite some time. It's not like NIL has snuck up on anybody. It's not like NIL is something you have to prepare for today. You should have been prepared, and you should be preparing for what happens next, especially with the House settlement and the floor going up and everything else, right? So to say that because of the NIL environment, we weren't able to take advantage, I find that to be curious because whether or not you had a group of people who never really believed in you, that, hey, man, this was a fluke run, you have to get through, and this comes not just to Keats, but just in general state leadership. I'm talking about Boo Corrigan, the AD. I am talking about the collectives. You all have to get on the same page and say, hey, look, We understand what the situation was before this tournament run, but here's the situation now. And in order to make this work for everybody, from the contract extensions to the financial situations, it's in everybody's best interest if we use this to catapult with momentum and turn this program around. This could be used as a line of demarcation, an actual little inflection point that helps the program get out of whatever kind of ups and downs it was in. And instead, you get a year like this, you get blown out in Chapel Hill. And now, unfortunately, Keats is going to the, hey, we got a banner, or hey, this, and all that kind of stuff. It got out of hand way too quick for something that happened so close to last year. And I know we're kind of joking about it based on the After Dark last night and the sentiment of love you, mean it, forever grateful for the Final Four run, but get the hell out. But man, you really have to get this wrong this year in order to get to that point. And that's where we're at.
Well, I think he was answering multiple questions there at the same time. When he says, he was trying to say in the old days, momentum was you had success, you were in the Final Four, there was a national spotlight, you were able to translate that immediately into recruits. In the new days, none of that matters. The only thing that matters now is how much money do you have.
Mm-hmm.
And when he did say, one of these comments has it right. Let me find it.
In the YouTube comments?
Yeah, because everyone seems to also be having audio problems. But let me see.
Yeah, some people are having audio problems, some people are not. So I'm not quite sure. This is from Kyle.
It was Kyle. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he just try to say
yeah.
He says the guys he got wasn't the guys that he wanted. Is that what he's saying?
Correct. Without betraying too much, I think there's a way that it can be explained. You can get a reduced rate on the players that are yours and that are returning. You have to then overpay for guys in the portal that aren't, right? And so ultimately what they ended up with, the players that they ended up with at the rate that they ended up with them, that's what they could afford. And what he was saying is exactly what Kyle said. He would rather have other players than the ones that he has, that he got the newer ones, right? I don't think you could ever talk Kevin out of losing the players that return for him. Those guys are role players. Jaden's a role player. Mike O'Connell's obviously a role player, and Ben's a role player, right? I don't think he's wistful that he doesn't have them. I think he's wistful that the situation was such that they did not have the NIL to go out and get better players in the portal. Now, that doesn't excuse the decisions that he made.
Yeah.
And the players that he bought in. Because,
by the way, to be clear, I want to read the exact quote in terms of what kind of players did you get, right? This team doesn't have any superstars. We got really good players. I love my players. But in fairness, there is no Jarkel Joyner, no Terquavion Smith, DJ Horn, or DJ Burns. Those guys who you can go and get averages of 17, 18 points per game. The disconnect happens when we don't play together because we don't have one or two guys that can take the game over. When we start playing together, we're a really good basketball team. Does NIL have something to do with that? Absolutely. All you have to do is take a close look at the top 5 teams of the league and somehow find their numbers. It'll tell you a story. I'm not going to make excuses about that. But again, this also gets back to what you were saying last night. As the coach, you got to have your team prepared. And by now, it's February 20th. You know what kind of team you got, okay? You know what kind of team you have. And he recognizes it. We don't have superstars, but if we play together, we play pretty well. Okay, well then why weren't they? Why have we seen instances where they have not? And those types of things. And that, again, gets back in the general points about Kevin Keats having the team prepared, which they were not prepared.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that are on the coach constructing the right roster, even with your financial constraints.
Yeah.
And there are things that are beyond the coach, right? Like, just look at any of the top transfers out there. NC State, their highest paid players is capped at about 400,000. The going rate on the market for an RJ Davis or someone of that ilk is $1 million. A Hunter Salas is $1 million. NC State just doesn't have a player like that on their roster. So there's a reality to that. And then here's the part where I was kind of disappointed in the way that they went about constructing this team. They won a specific way last year, which is what always bothers me about the fluke. They won strangely enough, they won playing Roy Williams basketball last year. They had two bigs. They rebounded the hell out of the basketball. They executed in the half court. When they needed a basket, they were able to punch it into the post and get a basket. They were not reliant on three-pointers. They were not reliant on, anything other than defending and rebounding at a really, really high level. And actually, the reason they struggled against Purdue was just because points in the paint aren't just DJ Burns. They were DJ Horn going to the basket. And when you watch this team play, I've said it before, they struggle going to the basket. They can't shoot threes. The one thing that they do well is make contested mid-range shots. Well, I got bad news for you. That's a formula for missing the ACC tournament. When your number one strength is that you can make contested 12-foot shots, that's a problem. Now that and some of that's on Kevin, right? Like he went out and got Dontrez Styles. Well, it's chicken or the egg, I guess. We can argue at both sides if you really wanted to. If I had one with three bigs, I would have made it a priority to play with three bigs.
Yeah.
Meaning Ben Middlebrooks was a great third banana. He's obviously struggled being in one of those top two positions. Went out and got what they could afford in Brandon Huntley Hatfield, and he hasn't panned out for whatever reason, right? Even when he was healthy, he hasn't been able to play it the way that they've needed him to play. And then you don't even have a third option. So to me, that's on Kevin. And just as I was critical of Hubert's messaging on Monday, him saying last night, well, he wasn't embarrassed by the way that they played in the first half.
Yeah, nah, man.
You should have been, man.
You should have been.
Because the first half was bad.
It was a bad first half.
And he did that a couple of years ago, too, when they had lost over there. And I thought to myself, this is not a great formula for you. And I was thinking more, you put the clip out about why NC State fans don't like Kevin Keatts. And part of it is the results against Carolina. And even though he has this ACC tournament championship win over Carolina, the fans almost are looking at it like, well, why don't you beat Carolina when they're bad? It's basically what it comes down to. Bad.
Yeah, that is a story for NC State basketball coaches. You're absolutely right in how you laid it out yesterday in the After Dark, and we've seen this over the course of Herb Sendek, Sidney Lowe, Mark Gottfried, and now Kevin Keatts. It's not like Carolina's running hot every freaking year. So in the years that they're not running hot and you got a pretty decent team and things are more on the level, like last night should have been, well, at least, and I saw this too in some sentiment, at least be competitive, at least be, at least be somewhat entertaining. The problem that NC State has right now is they're not even really all that entertaining to watch on top of that. So, but you get back to the messaging and everything else. And I go back to my central premise here, and that NC State somehow really screwed their own messaging coming out of the Final Four, right? And what you needed to do. Like you pointed this out. This is from Shay Dixon, new with LSU. LSU is backing Matt McMahon. If you had given me 5 tries to name the coach at LSU, I would have failed all 5 times. I'm going to be real here. I'm like, who the heck is Matt McMahon? And okay, fine. Got it. So LSU is backing Matt McMahon with a focus on building basketball's NIL budget, sources tell me. LSU and South Carolina had the least NIL money in the offseason. Both are at the bottom of the SEC standings. My story on LSU's approach and what's next and everything is over on 3. And you brought this to my attention and wanted to present it because this is kind of where a lot of programs, NC State's not the only one included in this, that those financial implications make it difficult to move on. So how do you pivot? This is how you pivot.
And the SEC has that very specific example now of Missouri being 0-18 in 1 year. And now here they are having all kinds of success coming off of last night's home romp of Alabama and Nate Oates. So it's interesting to see the SEC saying, now, wait a second. And without knowing Matt McMahon's contract, it's year 3, right? You figured he probably had a 6-year deal. So what are we talking about for the SEC, really?
Nothing.
At $8 million, maybe. But the interesting thing about that is they're saying, rather than pay the $8 million, I'm going to take whatever portion of that and devote it towards next year's roster. That's actually what I would like to see Boo Corrigan come out and do this week and say, hey, this season hasn't gone the way we wanted it to. Here's the reality of the situation. Here's what we're going to do. This is what we're doing. Kevin is coming back. This is what the situation is.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, this thing is just festering, and it's not even an open wound. It's a raging fire. I wish it wasn't. I was on with Mark Packer yesterday on the ACC network. And if you don't know, Mark Packer invented the Weiner line.
Mhm.
Mark Packer invented the OG sports phone. Okay.
We invented people calling a voicemail. What are you talking about, Joe?
I could tell he was slightly wistful though, because he was like, so what's kind of the temperature of the fans down there? And I said, well, you invented the Weiner line. We perfected it. And I really do. I cannot recall a single basketball season where these two fan bases have been this way. Football, sure.
Yeah.
We just had it in the fall, right?
Yeah.
But I've never seen a basketball season like this. And if you're Boo Corrigan, you need to be proactive. I get it. You have a new chancellor coming in. Maybe you feel like you can't speak out of turn here. But what LSU did, that's what NC State needs to do. Because either that or you fire Kevin. It's one or the other. Yeah. But you can't sit here and let him linger like this. It's not good for him. It's not good for the fans. It's not good for the program. You have to have the plan. And to your point, this should have happened last year.
Because again, that's the thing.
And said, here's
dismiss.
Where we are.
Right.
And here's where we are. Here's how we capitalize on this momentum. Here's how we put ourselves in a position in this brave new world where there is no Roy and there is no Kay.
Yeah.
This is how we position ourselves. And that didn't happen. Instead, there was a whole lot of graphics about we're the first program with 27 appearances in women's basketball and mixed lacrosse and rifle. And it's like, cool.
Again, this
and to
is
make a bowl game on a day that ends in Y. Like,
I cannot stress this enough. I cannot stress this enough. This is a collective.
You like my my random.
I do like that. I do like that. To wrap my point on this, before we get to some comments, this is a collective failure. People want to put it solely on Keats for not being able to back up what happened last year. I'm not saying he isn't responsible for some of this. He puts the roster together, okay? But this is a collective failure by the university, by the athletic department, by Boo Corrigan to understand what last year really was about. We cannot retcon where Kevin Keats was going into the ACC tournament. We cannot hand wave that away. Take the situation, be honest about what it is, and then come out and say, if you want to keep this going, this is what it's going to require. Instead, we did not get that. And now you see where NC State is, and it might be too late. But this also tracks with Boo Corrigan. I don't want to do this like a pile on Boo Corrigan situation here in the situation. But I mean, Boo Corrigan's never been one to just publicly go out there and say, hey, man, here's what we're going to do. That's just not his style. I'm not saying that's in a good or a bad way. I'm simply saying that we are asking Boo Corrigan to do something he has not consistently done himself. And that is get the messaging right publicly, and this is not just be like, hey, why don't you come on our podcast and talk? I'm talking about anywhere, man. Anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just not something that he consistently
It's also
does.
With the fans.
Yes.
Okay. We are a conduit to the fans, and we understand the fans, NC State fans in particular, better than anybody. But that's not our job.
That's not our job.
That's not my messaging.
Unless you put us on the payroll. From Steve.
Even then.
I agree with Giglio that men's basketball is a year-to-year roller coaster, but two things have been constant the last 8 years: inconsistency and the head coach. Yeah, they have been inconsistent year to year, man. Feel like this is a mailbag question. Can we do a deep dive into Giglio's beef with Randy Woodson? Maybe we'll spend a mailbag on that bad boy. From Joko Wolf, never thought I'd see the day where I don't get to roll out the AV cart and watch the Wolves on an ACC tournament. What's that?
Signal to me one more time for the rollback ad, because I got some great dates for you.
Okay. We'll make that happen. Oh, I know why you're thinking about that with the AV card. I'll make sure and when I built out the breaks, the rollback spot
build them out
after we talk to Brendan Marks, which we're going to do here on the other side.
Housekeeping.
Big thanks to Enovana. Check them out online at enovana.com. You find yourself in a situation where your kids are tracking in and out from the snow. and dragging out all that stuff from the snow because they've been out sledding. Maybe you, the adult, you've been enjoying a little sledding, a little snow walk, dragging that stuff in. Call Inovana. They can do a one-time cleaning for you. So check them out online, inovana.com.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it clean with Inovana.
Ladies and gentlemen, the OG Hat Vault is currently open. You magically whisked away when you put on an OG hat with our partners at Base 6. Go click on the link that's in the YouTube summary or the podcast summary about the OG Hat Vault, which closes on February 25th. When the Hat Vault closes, that hat will go away for 20 years, and maybe we'll come out with a 4K Blu-ray edition with special Joe Giglio commentary attached to it. That's what happens when it goes back into the vault. Hey, OG Founders Club, your stuff is in the mail. I've been actually getting some tweets, some social media from people who have received their OG Founders Club. Yes, Joe.
Well, thank you, Kyle. Number one. Okay,
Perfect.
So talk to me.
Yeah,
Since I'm technically this is the one to business decision I don't make.
yeah.
If someone just signed up for OG Fans and the Founders Club, are they still eligible for these gifts?
No, the Founders Club is closed. That was a one-time only thing at the beginning of the football season.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people who signed up like this week for OG Fans, do they even get a hat?
No, they get nothing. No.
Only the Founders Club.
That's why it's called the Founders Club. It was a very finite window to do this.
Oh, you're big on these windows, man.
Hey, man, we got to give
and Walt Disney.
We got to give people a reason to jump in, much like the Hat Vault. So get it now, because on February 25th, the Dead Conference goes away for 20 years. We might never see it again. We might never see it again, Joe. What? Just saying. So that's the OG Hat Vault. Big thanks to our friends over at Longleaf. We were supposed to have an OG party at Longleaf yesterday, but the weather took us out. But they'll be back open. They'll be back open today and this weekend. May I suggest you go out and get yourself some bourbon while you're hanging out at Longleaf? They got a great bourbon selection and great specials all the time. And of course, their brunch is fantastic. I know some people have been finally coming around to the ways of the brunch. So head on over to longleafswine.com to find out more. You might go to Longleaf and you have their brisket and you find yourself inspired. That's why you go to the Butcher's Market. And of course, the Butcher's Market is sponsoring OG Live. So we appreciate them. Big thanks to our friends at Homefield. A day like today is super cold out. Got to stay warm. Homefield's got the sweatpants. They've got the fleece line hoodies. They make it right. So check them out online at homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code OG24 to save 15% off your order. And Whitaker and Hamer. You want to watch that Four Nations tournament game tonight? Hey, man, watch it at Shady's. I won't be at Shady's tonight because there's no hockey practice tonight. It's kind of amusing that we don't have a winter sport practice given all the snow, but it is what it is. But if you got nothing to do, you want to get out of the house, kind of cooped up, head over to Shady's and watch the Four Nations tournament. And if you need any legal needs, check out wh.lawyer. Again, that's wh.lawyer. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, a man that I need a code name for, Brendan Marks, the Athletic. Code names are all the rage right now. Carolina Blue Matter. Sounds so serious, so secretive. I feel like Tom Cruise is about to jump off an airplane to steal the grant of rights and send it out to the MI6 or something. It's so clandestine.
That's the next Nicolas Cage movie. Instead of breaking into the Smithsonian, he breaks into ACC headquarters and steals the grant of rights.
Now, before we get to the latest at the Athletic regarding this conference realignment, I don't know, due diligence that they were trying to do a shell game with the money and they've been sued by our guy David McKenzie and everything else for open records laws. Let's actually go back last night and look at things from the Carolina perspective. We sat here, we talked about Kevin Keatts and messaging. But Hubert Davis has also been having some messaging issues. Going into last night's game, he was on the ACC teleconference on Monday, and the Daily Tar Heel had asked him about a general manager, like a follow-up on what he had said to Jones Angel on the radio show. And he shut it down real quick with this whole it got twisted and everything else. I'm like, what got twisted? I think people recognize this is what you need. So let's do it. And that messaging was a little off. So I guess, between that and like, I get that Carolina fans are, hey man, don't lose to State. It was entertaining last night, all that kind of stuff. I still feel like with everything going on, there's still like a buy-in issue that's currently taking place in Chapel Hill with Hubert Davis. And that might not be resolved until the end of the season to see how that Duke game goes.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be resolved. I mean, realistically, you beat NC State by 15 points. I guess it's good for your net, but it doesn't it doesn't help you significantly. It's not the thing that's getting you into the tournament.
Right.
Every game that you play from here until the Duke game is not doing that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the games that you should win. Those are the games that you're expected to win. And by and large, North Carolina has done that this year. They've had a couple of slip-ups, obviously. It's the Duke game that obviously is the one everybody is looking for. But no, to get back to your point about messaging, the GM thing, this is something that you and I have talked about, Joe, but like the vibes around Chapel Hill before last night had changed dramatically in the last week and a half, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the messaging, the vibes, and the way that North Carolina looked losing at Pitt, the way that North Carolina looked, I don't even want to call it a loss at Duke. I mean, that was an utter humiliation.
Yeah.
Blowout against Clemson. Those things are different than losing a 1-point game or a 1-possession game over and over again. Those are the sorts of games where embarrassment starts to set in.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know this as well as anybody. When you get to the point of embarrassment and apathy, that's when you start to lose the war. That's when you really have to start being afraid. And, I think when you're looking at Hubert Davis before those games and Hubert Davis after those 3 games, the level of leeway that people in Chapel Hill had towards him and his tenure changed because of what they saw in those 3 games. They saw players who did not look like they were interested in playing together or at all. They did not look like a team that had any interest in, they looked like people who were ready to go on spring break already.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing, especially considering North Carolina might miss the tournament for the second time in 3 seasons. That's the one thing that Hubert Davis could not afford to happen. And before Wednesday, you started to see that.
Do you see, we talked a little bit about this last night and people wanted to shut me down, but is there a path here with this small ball lineup for the Tar Heels to make some hay in the last 5 weeks here?
Until they run into Duke, maybe. I mean, like realistically, and I feel so cynical saying this because like the games do matter, the games should matter, but like realistically, nothing North Carolina does between now and that Duke game matters as far other than what does it do to prepare you for the Duke game to not have that same thing happen again?
It's basically don't lose till the Duke game. That is North Carolina's MO the rest of the way. Don't lose until the Duke game.
Right. So like Giglio, to your point, like, is there value in the small ball? Potentially. I think it's a different look. I think that it's a way that North Carolina can leverage its quickness. Like when you build a roster this way, Duke did the same thing last year. You have to be able to leverage your quickness offensively because you know what you're giving up defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So like, being able to apply ball pressure a little bit more consistently. That's what was working so well at the beginning of the season against Kansas and that comeback. Like if you're going to have a small defensive team, you've got to get up in people. So is it going to pay dividends for the next 5 games? To me, the answer to that question is only if it helps Carolina have a legitimate chance against Duke, because otherwise, I mean, for lack of a better term, UNC is just spinning its wheels, doing the same thing. And it doesn't really matter. It just doesn't matter what they do unless that gets them more ready.
But maybe I'm using my brain here a little bit too much. Duke is not their only way into the tournament. It's probably the easiest.
It's the easiest.
But what I'm saying is if there's something to this confidence that can be built with this small ball lineup to take to Charlotte, right? And I'm sorry, I'm never going to back off the point that bracket luck is real.
It is.
They could play Wake, they could play SMU, they could play Stanford in Charlotte and make the ACC championship game. So that's another way for them to get into this tournament.
It is
what I'm getting at. I'm not trying to overreact to what they did last night.
Right.
But if you score 88 against Syracuse and 97 against State, you're doing something.
You are.
Right?
I guess my counter to that would be, yes, I 100% agree with you that can be a thing that gives them that confidence. But if they build that confidence because of this small ball lineup, it would be the first time they've been able to sustain a confidence level this entire season.
Yeah.
That's my fear, is like even coming out of Maui when they had those opportunities, like Auburn, that was a whole different level. You're not playing that same sport.
Yeah.
But like Michigan State, that was a winnable game. I mean, Kansas was a winnable game. Florida and Charlotte, these were all winnable games. And like they
Florida.
I mean, those were all Florida, especially. You're leading in the last 4 minutes of the game. But I think the reason I say that is because if they didn't have concrete confidence then, being so close over and over, having the lead in those situations, I just don't know that they're going to like, okay, sure. They win these next 5 games. They build some small ball confidence. They're going to get thunder stomped against Duke again. And all of that's going to go back to 0. That's my fear with this team.
listen. Young Brendan, you're now getting to be old Brendan.
I'm still not 30 for the record. Let me put that out there.
When you see a team twice, right? Yeah. If you get hammer cocked once, the next game's going to be better, minimum better, if not go the other way. So I would hold off on that. They're going to get killed by Duke. The team I worry about for them, which is odd, is Clemson. They have nothing for Clemson. They have nothing for them. Yeah, like because with Duke now, again, I get it. They went to Durham. They didn't show up for the basketball game. I get that, but under like out of 100 games, 99 of them, they're going to be like walking in there with their pants, sticking out 25 feet because they're excited to see Duke. I suspect when Duke gets there, they might even, hey man, Belichick's so fucking smart. He might tell the weather system, hey, we need snow before they play Duke. Open seating policy.
Let's do it again.
Fuck your money, Iron Rams, or whatever they are, the Ram Club. We don't want your money. We're going to do open seating for Duke. Belichick and his lady friend's going to be there again, and the magic's going to happen.
And maybe I'm a pessimist about this UNC team. Man,
you gotta get creative. You gotta get creative.
This
is what happens when you don't cover a shitty team. You don't get creative.
I mean, it's just like my level of confidence in North Carolina's confidence is as close to 0 as it can be. And they've done better. And I think Hubert, I've said this before, I think that Hubert has tried a lot of things this year. Mm-hmm. They've switched up some defensive coverages. Obviously, he's changed the rotations. He's called different things. Like he has tried things. He has pushed buttons. I don't know that any of them have worked. It almost reminds me of like 2 years ago when I remember doing a story after they missed the tournament as a preseason number 1. And the thing that I remember most about that was talking to a player's parent. And they said, we don't know if Hubert didn't say it enough or if the players did not hear him, but they became intoxicated with this idea of what they should be. Mm-hmm. And when shit hit the fan, they did not have the means internally to deal with it. Yeah. And I don't know that this team knows how to handle a modicum of success. They could win these next 5 games. Small ball could work. They have not shown at any point this season. That doesn't mean they can't still, but they haven't shown the ability to be mentally tough at really any point this season.
Brendan Marks from The Athletic is hanging out with us if you're watching on YouTube Live. Anytime we talk about the ACC, it's brought to you by our friends at Keller Williams Commercial, the Donnelly team. You might have a youth hockey coach who wants to open up a small rink and he's looking for investors, but he needs a space first. Before we can call it OG Arena. So you contact our friends, the Donnelly team at Keller Williams Commercial, and they can find that warehouse space for you. Giglio, yes?
Friend of the program, Brendan, suggests we add some golf bays with simulators to this facility.
Ooh.
He has also volunteered to run said facility for us. So,
all right. You know what? I'm gonna we're gonna have a meeting.
Maybe we should take our own advice, get out of the media business, and open up this place.
You might be right. So head on over to trianglencommercial.com for more information and help on your commercial real estate. All right. One more thing related to the basketball program before we move to the Carolina Blue Matter. Yes, Brendan, you were going to say.
No, I'm waiting. I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Why is the GM conversation difficult? Why did it become difficult? What am I missing here?
Let me ask you guys this. Right. Because you guys, I think, do this as well as anybody locally and really nationally. When Hubert first made those GM comments, did it strike you as being in line with his character, his previous messaging, or anything that you know to be true about Hubert Davis?
No, it was not.
Felt completely out of character, right?
Yeah. Actually, it was
like
actually
video.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. You're talking about the radio show. You're talking about the.
I'm
ACC
talking about the
one?
radio show.
Okay, the radio show to me,
Oh.
the radio show to me, and having heard it, was about as candid as Hubert has been in a long time as the coach.
Okay.
Long time as a coach. Yes.
How did
So
you-
he was candid.
Did you interpret the pushback on it, the mixed messaging earlier this week when he was asked to elaborate? Did that seem more in line with his character to you?
Yes.
Yes.
That what happened on Monday in the teleconference seemed more in line with his character. I also think that maybe in his mind, you tell me if I'm wrong, okay, because you're way more plugged in about this than I am. When I heard him talk about a general manager and understanding that the way that Carolina basketball has done things is not sustainable, while I was in agreement, I also went, well, wait a minute. And I texted you too. I said, well, wait a minute. Didn't you hire a guy? Like, do I need to go to, I mean, there it is inside Carolina. There's the piece. I'm pretty sure Sherelle McMillan wrote the piece. They had this guy. But then it wasn't like, but they did it differently. You know, whereas John Shire Duke, it was like, damn, we got this GM. He's on staff. Here we go. Or she is on staff. Here we go. This one was still like this weird kind of nebulous collective thing. And then I guess this guy kind of got pushed out by a consolidation, which again is typical at all these universities. State has gone through it, everything else. But then, okay, cool. And then the story just kind of stops cold. And I'm wondering, well, why did it stop cold? You know, where is the proactive thinking coming from? Is the proactive thinking coming from the coach? Is the proactive thinking coming from Bubba Cunningham? Are the thoughts not in line? Are they not meshing in where the athletic department thinks they want to go, the collective wants to go, and where Hubert wants to go? I just feel like this doesn't need to be a difficult conversation, yet it has turned into a difficult conversation. Why?
Yes to all of that.
Okay.
Yes to all of it. Seriously. Like, Hubert Davis is a lot of things. You want to say something, Giglio?
Another reason to give Duke credit in this whole transition.
Yeah.
They didn't just hire a GM.
Right.
They hired a GM from Nike. The fucking meal ticket that is Nike and has been Nike for the last 40 fucking years. Okay.
Was there a Jordan brand rep they could have hired? I mean, come on.
That's what I'm. No,
Right,
that's where
you're
this
right,
is going.
you're right, you're
That's where
right.
this is going. You hired some random guy from Kentucky. Cool. Like, of all the things that you need in a fundraiser GM type role, is somebody who actually cares about Carolina basketball
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because
and
I
has
think
connections.
the thing that I think gets lost in all of this GM conversation is not all of these roles are created equally. Not all of these things are the exact same. And so when Hubert Davis says, I need a GM, is that in the Rachel Baker at Duke, marketing, Nike, brand building, contract evaluation? Is it in that mold? Is it in more of the, like at Syracuse, for example, Alex Klein, who's formerly with the Pelicans and the Knicks, he's much more in the player evaluation, talent acquisition, scouting sort of mold. So when Hubert said GM, there was never any real clarity about what exactly this person was coming in to do. You know, was it going to be more of that brand NIL person? Was it going to be more of the talent thing? But thus far in Hubert's tenure, we have not seen him cede much control in either of those respects outside of his direct umbrella.
Yeah.
And so, Joe, when you talk about, yes, they brought in TJ Beisner from Kentucky, who, by the way, was key to Kentucky signing #1 classes under Cal.
Yeah.
I think it's foolish to suggest that he suddenly forgot how to recruit like that. I think you could even make the argument that were he allowed to do more of that, you'd have a different roster this season than they currently have. But that person specifically was brought in under the collective's umbrella instead of being under the GM title in-house for a number of reasons. One of those being, you know, if that guy is in-house, then Hubert has to be more responsible for him.
Yeah.
And if he's outside of the house, if he's working for the collective, that's not necessarily the case.
Okay.
And so when we're talking about this GM thing, to me, I go back to, is Bubba Cunningham a forward thinker? I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
I think he is. He has proven to be multiple steps of the way. The fact, you know, Carolina Blue Matter, the fact that UNC is doing these things, the code name, whatever, he's clearly thinking the right way for the modern athletics landscape.
Yeah.
Hubert is a good basketball coach. He's a good man. I do not know that I would characterize him as a forward thinker. And so when you hear those comments, I think, Joe, the exact thing that you're talking about there is, where is this originating from?
Yeah.
That's the thing to me that is the most glaringly obvious.
Yeah.
Is this just an in-season change of heart that diverts from everything everybody knows about you? or is this a bug in your ear and a teleprompter?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that also is something that indicates to me that the demeanor in Chapel Hill might be changing to the point where even Roy Williams is he's with Zach Gelb, and he's doing the I got more passion in my pinky for Carolina, and he's defending Hubert Davis. I'm like, this is not where they all thought this was going to be. Nobody thought. I mean, you go back to Theo Pinson on his podcast and just say, hey guys, what work doesn't work anymore. I mean, for lack of a better term, I don't want to take a victory lap here, but what I've been saying about Carolina the last couple of years is coming home to roost. There's a lot of existential conversation taking place, and nobody seems to be taking over with these competing thoughts about where it wants to go. Somebody needs to step up in leadership and take Carolina where it needs to go, and so everybody's in lockstep. And that's why what goes on at Duke is so important, because you don't have these questions over at Duke. You might question if John Shire might be handling the rotation right, or what, like basketball things, but you're not asking the existential questions about where Duke basketball is going. They know where they're going. And I think that's what's leading to all this kind of stuff. And then, we'll wrap on the Carolina Blue Matter here, which you had reported on over at The Athletic. Look, Brendan, I love you. You're my guy.
My wife talks to me this way sometimes. I'm so ready.
Okay.
Forever grateful.
Forever grateful, Brendan. I mean, honestly, I'm forever grateful for you. You've been nothing but helpful. You always make yourself available and everything else, man. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart.
Here goes.
But I mean, what's the big fucking deal?
It's a sexy code name. It's a sexy code name.
I mean, are we really doing this because I had a code name? Like, what's the big fucking deal, man?
Okay. Here's let me say two things. Okay. Number one first. The last point I want to make about basketball is I actually want to harken back to a video you guys recently posted talking about NC State missing its bump and its momentum.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that same logic applies in Chapel Hill.
That's fair. Okay.
Just wanted to get that off my chest.
Yeah, that's fair.
They did not update. They tried to swap out some pieces, and that's not where you're at right now.
Right.
As far as the Carolina Blue Matter is concerned, it's interesting potentially in one way.
Okay.
In potentially one way. Obviously, we love code names. It's not talked to Bubba Cunningham. It's not quite the Magnificent Seven. The fact that he can joke about that is incredible.
Bubba's the best.
He is. But the one way it's potentially interesting is my understanding so far, and what we've reported at The Athletic, is that this has all been done in the vein of due diligence. This is the fact that two league members sued the ACC. You have no idea how it's going to shake out. And we never took legal action, obviously. We were never close to taking legal action. We were just, looking, seeing what was out there.
I would expect Carolina to do that. I mean, that's what they should be doing.
It is. However, that is taking what they are saying at face value. And so in the documents that we've obtained and that now are public because of a lawsuit filed by David McKenzie, you can see how vague some of these billing invoices are.
Yeah.
And what he's accusing North Carolina of basically is you are redacting this when these bills should be publicly available. Now, do I think some of that is probably going to be protected under attorney-client privilege? Probably. However, if we get copies of these bills and detailed copies of the invoices, and it shows that, hey, North Carolina, maybe this wasn't due diligence. Maybe this was a little bit further down the line than you're talking about. Then suddenly we're talking about the flagship member of the ACC not just doing something, which is clear that they've already done the thing, but lying about what exactly you characterized it as.
Didn't John Pryor already give the game away when he went after Bubba? Like back in May or whatever that was?
I think so, but it's one thing for a borderline rogue board of trustees.
Is he rogue? I mean, he got Bill Belichick, and it got to the point where
he did. He also got his
that the system president basically had to say, "Cut the shit."
Right. I mean, I would. If that's not rogue, what is?
I mean, but clearly he had some power.
Right.
What I'm getting at, he clearly had some power, and people are on board with what he's doing.
But he doesn't have nearly the unilateral power that a university does.
Gotcha.
To make a conference realignment choice.
And
if we find out that North Carolina was not doing its due diligence and it was more seriously making inquiries, if it was reaching out to other conferences, hey, there's a certain Big Ten commissioner who knows a thing or two about North Carolina. I'm just saying that's the one way to me that this story becomes a little more interesting.
I think the buried lead here is that somebody at Carolina got one of those white glove New York law firms to have a billable hours of under $1,000. Like that's a steal. Okay. Like they're saving you money, man. Scatting for under $1,000 an hour. Come on now. That's pretty good.
That's my wife's argument if she goes to Target with our credit card. It's, hey, I didn't even spend $100. This is
I got a deal.
Free. Yeah.
I used the promo code. I used OG25. I saved money at Scad.
Guys, I burned that promo code on my nephew's bar mitzvah a while ago. He got the finest University of Texas goods, courtesy of OG. Let's go.
Oh, I love to hear that, man. I love to hear that. Brendan Marks, The Athletic, Carolina Blue Matter code name. I know the story is not going to go away. But I do understand the perspective of what are you trying to hide? I understand that perspective, but at the same time, I'm like, I would hope Carolina is doing their due diligence.
Yeah, I had a couple of people even reach out to me when we posted our initial story, and they were like, "Now listen, I don't make $600,000, so I can't say this, but that's not that much money."
Look at them. I mean, geez, man, that's nothing.
That's what NC said. Kevin Keith got that as a bonus last year. If we're talking about burning $600,000.
On that note, Brendan Marks, The Athletic. Hey, man, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Big thanks to Rowback. Use the promo code OG20 to save 20% off your order. You might need it for a bar mitzvah gift. I don't know. Sweet, sweet polo. Now, Joe, you said we do have some Rowback news, correct?
Yes.
March
3rd. March 3rd, we will have the NC State and Carolina merch officially launched. They'll have polos, quarter zips, and hoodies.
Love that.
And then we've been waiting. We've been promised it'll be here. March 15th is the AV cart shirts.
Yes.
So March 3rd, Tar Heel and Wolfpack swag. And then March 15th, the AV cart. Thanks to our friends at Rowback. We told you to save it. And now it's time to use it.
It's time to break it out.
20 to save on your 20% on your initial order.
I love it. I love that. And while you're at Rowback, make sure you get some gym shorts while you're at it, and then head on over to our friends at O2 Fitness. O2fitnessclubs.com is the website.
O2 Fitness, so much more than a gym.
With O2 Fitness, like they say, more than just a gym. The gym is really great locations, great staff, great equipment, but it goes beyond that. It's all about making sure that you're changing your entire lifestyle on top of working out. That includes things like Loop Nutrition, which partners with our friends over at Happy and Hale, which we'll get to in a second. Renew Physiotherapy to help you out, like Giglio, who's got neck issues and things like that. And now, look for a good chunk of our audience, it's in their 40s. They're approaching their 40s. Testosterone levels will drop over time. That's a natural thing, but there are oral testosterone treatments. And O2 has partnered with a company, Thrive. Check them out. livethrive.co is the website. It's very much like what you've come to expect with this telehealth. You go online, you talk to somebody over it, insurance, all that kind of stuff. Don't worry. Like all that stuff just gets handled online. It's safe, it's secure, it's discreet. And all you got to do is go to livethrive.co to find out things like this and weight loss options as well. But as we mentioned, O2 Fitness partners with all sorts of folks to make sure that you're living your best life. That includes our friends at Happy and Hale. Check them out. Download the app and use our promo code, Joe, when you take a break.
Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hale.
So what's the promo code? How are we making this work, Joe?
OG25. You download the Happy and Hale app. That's Happy Plus Hale. Punch it in your little app store thing there. It's free. Order. It'll be ready for you. Promo code OG25. Save 25% on your initial order. Then, just for signing up for the app, you get a free smoothie. And for your birthday, you get a free bowl. Totally worth it. OG25. Use our promo code. Save yourself some money. Have a delicious lunch on the OG.
I love it. Big thanks to our friends at Hometown Realty. Check them out online at hometownrealty.myhtr.com. Buy, sell, calculate. Also understand with all the new construction that's taking place right now, builders have a lot of incentives. And in order to understand and get your best bang for your buck, Hometown Realty is going to help you out with that. So check them out at myhtr.com. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, he's the head coach at Wake Forest. He is Steve Forbes. We got a game on Saturday between you and State, right? School's canceled. I got hockey practices canceled, but you're good. Saturday's happening, right?
How can hockey practice be canceled in this weather? This is hockey weather. And you got Giglio over there blowing, like I'm cold, I'm tough. Listen, I can see like baseball practice being canceled, but not hockey practice. Let's just go outside and practice.
Hey, man, only in North Carolina can a winter sport get canceled because of winter. Welcome to this state, man. That's
I grew up a little differently. I grew up with snow plows and salt. And then people that had experience driving on those type of conditions without pouring on your brakes when you come to something that's slick.
We've had all sorts of weather experiences. You had a weather experience getting back this weekend. And I know that this is a weird time of the year for basketball because either you're in a mode of you want to keep playing because you like how things are going, but then all of a sudden you've got this built-in break. Or I think in y'all's case, if I can kind of read between the lines here, given the travel back, the Florida State game, bouncing back against SMU, some injuries, you probably looked at this week open between the SMU game and the NC State game as like a thank you. All right, cool. We got a break here.
Yeah, we definitely needed it, and you're right. I mean, there's been a lot of times I'm like, dang, we need to keep playing, right?
Yeah.
But in this situation, like Saturday will be, I think, 6 of our last 8 on the road. Now, granted, it's, not very far down the road, but we spent the 2 past weeks, 1 week in California and the next weekend in Dallas. And then, like you said, had travel issues on both of them coming back. And then on the latest one, it was just weather, where we tried to get around it, couldn't. And then thankfully decided to land and ride it out. But yeah, this break comes at a good time for us just as far as healing up. Cameron Hildreth missed the game on Saturday. A lot of people, and rightfully so, are making a big deal out of Boopy not playing, but we didn't have Cameron either, and so we need him back. I feel like he'll practice today. Hunter's banged up because he gets knocked around every game, Efton. So, it was good. We needed some days off, and we've been traveling a lot. Listen, the other thing that's not talked about a lot for guys is we missed a week of school, and we don't have online here. So it's like we need to get back in the classroom too. And so I thought it came at a good time for us.
We talk a lot every year about how rosters turn over, and sometimes it takes a team a minute or two to figure out who they are. How have you seen your team change, from November to December to where we are now? I thought it was a great response that you guys had against SMU on the road, especially after the way. I'm not rubbing it in at all. This. I was on the ACC network yesterday on my back deck stumping for your NCAA tournament rights and my Deeks. So it was a great bounce back from that Florida State game. Just kind of talk a little bit about how your team has changed, because even though you do have a lot of the same parts back, it's still a different team in a different year.
Well, the evolution of our team has grown throughout the year. And this has kind of always been one of my things with determining who's in the tournament is there are some teams that change throughout the year that don't start out maybe great for whatever reason. Maybe, like you said, maybe it's roster turnover, which all of us are dealing with now, to just kind of finding out who you are. Honest, full disclosure, we were playing fast in September and October. Okay. Like fast tempo. I said, I'm quoted, this is the fastest team I've ever had, I thought. We shot a lot of threes. We played Alabama in a charity game, made 9. Okay, now they might have made about 20. But I thought that's who we were. And then we got into the season and we weren't. We couldn't make a wide open one. So, the definition of insanity is what? Expecting something to change.
Yeah.
Well, how's that? You know the definition. I don't know. I don't remember how it goes, but
Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting things to change. So
exactly.
Expecting a
So
different result.
So we had to change, but we needed practice time. See, this is the other thing. In November, we had 10 games. We had 15 practices in 10 games. Can't change. Got to December and had some time with finals, break here, break there. And we had to retool the offense. And then the one thing that's been consistent the entire time is we've been really good defensively, like one of the best teams in the league. I mean, you're top 25 in the top 30 in the country in KenPom. Defensive efficiency all year. And so it's more offense than defense. And then the evolution of getting Ty Johnson playing time. He wasn't playing well at the beginning of the season. I'm not going to just give it to people. And so after Christmas, he got in the starting lineup. That helped Hunter. Hunter still plays some point, but he doesn't have to play it all the time. And so, and then Saturday, Parker Fredrickson breaks out and makes 5 threes. And so these are all good things. We haven't had Omaha Blue since the Michigan game, and now we're getting him back in. And this helped him. And so I do think it comes at a good time.
Looking at the KenPom stats, you are defensively in conference number 4 and 25th in defensive efficiency nationally, according to KenPom. I'm just impressed you're a coach who's using KenPom in a non-negative way. I like that. Ken's been catching some strays this year, man. A lot of people ain't happy with the numbers, man.
The negativity thing doesn't really do any good because you can't really control it. So you just kind of – here's the thing. You throw all these numbers out. Most people don't even know what they mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you look at our ACC stats. Now, one thing about me, when you're looking at statistics, I don't look at overall because I don't think that's a true picture of who you are now. I think it's your league stats.
Yeah.
And if you look at the league numbers, I think we lead the league in field goal, defensive field goal percentage and 3-point defensive field goal percentage. Those probably are a little bit more important to me than KenPom. Okay. Yeah. And so now I understand for a metric, that's not something that they look at. But for me as a coach and winning games, those things are important. And for instance, we went to SMU on Saturday and won and held them to 66, they're averaging 82. And so that tells me, without knowing the points per possession, that it was probably pretty low.
Yeah, 66 points you held them to. And then, looking at your 3-point defensive efficiency, number 1 in the conference, effective field goal percentage defensively, number 1. Now, speaking of stats and things like that, that gets us to, Wake Forest and the ACC in general and just how many teams are going to make the NCAA tournament. And I know, there's one thing. Obviously, you want that Florida State game back. I don't think that's a game that I watched your post-game press conference and I could tell how, right? Yeah. But you follow that up, you respond. Teams that can contend are going to respond the way that you guys did. And then you also look at your road wins this year. You look at wins above the bubble. That's another fun stat that people are obsessing over right now. Do you feel that, are the road wins appreciated one way or the other? Regardless of what you think about the league, do you think the road wins are appreciated?
No, because we throw everything into quads. Like the other night, like Thursday morning, John Curry came in here to do a check on proof of life on me after the loss. And he said, "Steve, you didn't lose to a quad 3. You lost to Florida State."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but that's not how people look at it. So I'll give you an example. We have 6 road wins in the league. One of the 6 is quad 1.
Yeah.
Okay. 3 of them are quad 3. All right. And so as far as value is concerned in metrics, no, we're not. But as far as confidence and moving into the double bye situation, yes. So it's 2 things, right? And, I'll tell you this. One of my best friends is Chris Jans at Mississippi State. We grew up together, coached together at Idaho, coached together at Wichita State. I was looking at his home schedule. Think about this. This year at Mississippi State, he has 9 home league games. Okay. 8 of them are quad 1 at home. Do you know how many quad 1 home games I've had in 4 years here?
2.
Well, Duke this year.
5.
5. Okay.
I've had Duke 4 times
Yeah.
and Virginia once
Yeah.
in 4 years.
Yeah.
Now you say, well, how are you supposed to get in a tournament? I mean, obviously you're going to have a better chance to win your home games than your road games. And I understand you got to win on the road. Look, we've got 8 wins away from our building this year. We've won 6 road games. We still have 2 left. And we've won 2 neutrals against Minnesota and Michigan. Okay. Lost to Florida, lost at A&M, lost to Xavier. So, the quad 3 loss, yeah, it hurts. They're kind of flirting around. Could they move up to 2? You got a lot of that going on too.
Yeah.
Like in 20 in my second year when we won 23 games again in the tournament, or 20 ended up 25 on Selection Sunday. North Carolina, for me, we beat them at home, was a quad 2 win because they were 31 and they went to the national championship. We didn't get a quad 1 win for winning at Virginia because they were like 77. Okay. So, I mean, how much does they look? I think it's a sorting tool. I think our strength of record this year is really strong. It's like, who did you play? Who did you beat? We're 31 in the country. Our wins above the bubble are like 33.
Mm-hmm.
Our strength of schedule in the net and non-conference is in the 40s. So we scheduled right. It's just we got to win games. And at the end of the day, fellas, we just got to win.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about 2 different players, and we're not in it every day. We don't see it every day, but I'm curious how you handled Ty after the Florida State loss.
Yeah.
That was a crazy shot. Everyone saw the shot, but that's a guy on your team. And you obviously the way that he responds against SMU without Cam, it kind of says a lot about him in the situation. What were some of how'd you try to is that one of those you got to hug him up and coach him up a little bit? But how did that kind of go with Ty, between that FSU game and the SMU game?
Probably a little bit of both. Typically I watch film with, the players and the staff. Some guys are more charged of offense and defense than others. They chiming in. I took the entire team in by myself, no staff. And that way, I could get personal and I could love on him at the same time. And so he got a dose of both. Now listen, he knew he's not accountable for himself. He wasn't walking around like, man, that was a great shot. Hey, look, like I said after the game, you can practice all these pressure situations that you want, and we do, but until you're in the situation, you just don't know how somebody's going to react to it.
Yeah.
Right. And be honest with you, he shot it. It stunned me so bad because I had to go up and glance at the clock because I was like, God, there's only one. I knew there was more time in that, but maybe I looked at the clock wrong, So, yeah, credit to him, credit to his teammates, all of them for bouncing back and in a really tough environment. SMU sold out crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Got the former president looking at you over there. It's and Andy's done a good job and they got a good team. And but yeah, it was a very deflating loss. I mean, you think about this. You just said we hang our hat on defense, right? We gave up 21 points in the first half. We gave up 51 in the second and 18 in the last 4. I mean, everything that could go wrong in the last 4 went wrong.
Is that last 4 minutes? Because I'll be honest, I had flipped over to another game, and then I get the little Apple notification that it was tight. I was like, wait a minute, what happened? You were up 14 with about that much to go, or something like that. I forgot what the total.
No, we were up 9 with 4.
Up 9. Okay, but
still, that's enough. And as a coach, you're standing there saying to yourself, this is not going good. You can just feel after 36 years of doing this, you can feel that. You can just feel it in your gut. Like, this is not good. Like one time we made a free throw. We weren't even matched up on a made basket on a free throw. They threw it over the top of their head to the corner and made a 3.
Right.
It's like,
right.
What? And then they miss a rebound. We're up. They miss a shot. We're up 4 with like a minute to go. We can't get it. It goes out of bounds. They run out of bounds playing dunk it.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing? And then
These
we gave
are
up.
and these are things that you're just going, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. That's what's going through your head.
I mean, full disclosure, yeah. I mean, it's just kind
Yeah.
of like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
And you're trying to control it. You're trying to help them. And I'd burned a couple timeouts to try to keep the lead at 10 earlier, and then I only had one. And then we ran two plays on the side to get it in because they're kind of funky how they defend you, but they didn't guard him. So Cameron made a basketball play and got off 2 feet, handed it to Epton. He dunks it, but there's still a lot of time left. And
This reminds me of a time in which I forgot what year it was, but Mike Krzyzewski, they lose, and his whole thing was like, that was not my team out there. It's like they got possessed by aliens. Like, I know what my team looks like. That is not my team out there. And I guess as a coach, sometimes you're like, I see you in practice, I've seen you in games, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, where'd my guys go? Is that how it happens?
Yeah, you hope it don't happen very often.
You don't happen often, but you just recognize, like, yeah, these aren't my guys. So.
Yeah, and that I kind of felt that way going back to Giglio's question earlier about early in the year. Like, who are these guys missing these shots?
Right.
Because you guys know, you've been around since I've been around here. I mean, we've been really, really good offensively, and we just, we couldn't make I'm talking about a wide open shot. And it's like, because I'm like, I see him every day in practice, but the lights come on and something changed, and so we had to fix it.
So big picture as we wrap things up. Go ahead, Joe.
I just wanted to ask about independent of the FSU game. I feel like maybe we're picking on you now. Cam is a guy last year that I felt like struggled to understand when it was his time and how it help and who should be the closer and who shouldn't. But I feel like he's really leaned into his role and understands what he's supposed to be doing this year. His development, I know sometimes we forget that players are allowed to get better as they get older, but it does seem like this year he has taken another step for you. It also seems like he really is kind of comfortable with who he is on this year's team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me that. He's one of the very rare guys in our league, right? He's a 4-year guy. There's not very many of those guys left, especially that average the points. I mean, this is the third year in a row in the ACC's average double digits, but his role has evolved, correct. And, yeah, last year, Hunter should have been the guy late to get the ball, but he was still evolving as that player too. And then we had Boopy and we had Cam, and so we had this dynamic. Sometimes it didn't always play out the way we wanted it to play out. Cam has made himself into one of the best defenders in our league, and he's shooting at a high clip. But he also, he wants to win. And when you want to win, then you do the things you got to do to win, and you get the ball to the right people, and you score when you need to score, but you also get other people involved, and you go back and you play incredibly tough defense, and so I'm proud of him. If you look at a picture of him from when we signed him to now, he looks like a totally different person, and I hope that it's not the truth, guys, but I mean, I've said to my wife before, is this the last kid I'm ever going to coach for 4 years? I don't know.
I mean, we don't. That gets to the bigger picture question. I mean, but that gets to the bigger picture question. You mentioned John Curry, AD, having conversations with him. What are the current conversations with you, the athletic department, even with the ACC about House? Basically a floor coming up in terms of spending for the basketball program, the football program, everything else. Like, how much preparation, how much time is being spent to kind of you already have to look ahead for your roster next year anyway, but how much of the money aspect and the expectations that come in with what you have to spend, what are those conversations like? What's the planning like?
One thing there's a lot of things I love about John, but the most important thing is being proactive and not reactive. And we've been very proactive on this front from last fall. So we've had a lot of meetings. I just had 2 major ones this week. I had one yesterday with the administration, and I had one early this morning with the collective. And so we're ready. We're ready to go.
Okay.
Now, what does that number look like? I think we're in a pretty good range of where we're going to be. And we've already planned. We already got contracts. We've got all this stuff in play. Okay, There's 2 separate contracts now. There's a licensing contract. There's a collective contract. They're separate things, but we already have that in place.
Okay.
And so a credit to John and his staff for doing that. I've been involved in this, but this has started back in the fall. And like I said, I'd had 2 major meetings on it this week. And really, truthfully, I'm gonna be honest. They wanted to meet earlier. I just picked this week. Like, okay, we're not playing.
Yeah, makes sense.
Got some time,
Yep.
but when that portal opens,
Gotta be ready.
we're going to be ready.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, how that looks, I thought it'd be one thing last year. It was about triple what it was. Honest truth. And I feel like we're pretty proactive in that portal. Like we do a pretty good job. But
So I guess that gets to the other part of the question, because I'm
Price
like
of the
you.
brick only goes up, Steve.
Every time you start to poke around, and you get, oh, I heard this person got this, and I heard this person got that. I think Giglio and I's reaction, usually our eyes bug out. We're like, what? And if our eyes are bugging out, I got to imagine that the coaches and the coaching staffs, their eyes are bugging out at where this is going. So I guess, that's at some point this becomes unsustainable. In terms of the spending, maybe.
yeah, I mean, I've heard that since it started.
Okay.
But my comment always is there's always going to be schools out there with donors that are they want to win.
Okay.
No matter what. So, but I think that is the upper, little smaller percentage than the rest of us.
Okay.
I think at some point we have to say, this is what we got.
Yeah.
And we're not going over it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and really truthfully, the education has to really come in basketball, in my opinion, to the agents.
Yeah.
We have to let the agents know we don't have unlimited money. Okay. And if you want your player to come here, this is what it is. And if you don't, then this ain't the right place. Look, I had 2 high school kids that committed to me in the fall for a certain, amount of money and then wanted more. And I didn't take them.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we just didn't have that kind of money. And it's also, I don't think you're worth that kind of money, and that's what makes it harder for a coach, because those are decisions that Nurse is a good friend of mine, in the league. He doesn't have those conversations. The GM does, and then he coaches the players.
Yeah.
It's hard to negotiate with your players and then coach them.
Yeah.
Right. But but to say that, there's going to be no place in the country, though, in college basketball, you can have a GM, but to say that the coach ain't going to be involved in what the player makes, that's crazy.
That's what I was going to ask you.
No way.
That's what I was going to ask you. I know everybody makes a big deal about a GM, and some ACC schools were proactive about it. Some are reacting to it. I mean, it's whatever. But at the end of the day, you can have a GM, but you still have to talk to the players about these things. I mean, you're in the room with them, right?
It's my team.
Yeah. Okay.
It's my locker room.
Yeah.
Now, it's a different dynamic in the league. I've seen it.
Sure.
Like, why didn't you play so-and-so? We got this much money in this guy, right? That dynamic's different, but it's my team, my locker room.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would just prefer not to be the one to have the conversation.
It's fair.
Right. And I did up until I'm not having that this year. We have somebody on campus to do that, that's all we need.
Okay.
That's all we need.
Hey, look, man, I hate talking about money. That's why I let Joe do it. I don't.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I don't come from money. I mean, I'm fortunate. I make money now, but I don't come from. So these numbers that we talk about, they're hard for me too, because I came up in a different time in this business.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are we doing? But it's either adapt or die.
Well, you didn't have the fancy flexible flyer for snow days like this back in the day. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm a full disclosure. My sled is still hanging in my mom's garage in Lone Tree, Iowa. And it is, I guarantee you, it's worth some money. Because it is a flexible flyer.
Yes. All right. Now we're talking.
But the best thing is those saucers, those loom. You get on those things and you can get killed on one of them things.
Metal one with a little cooking spray on the bottom?
Yeah. Literally used to get behind a snowmobile and get pulled on one of them things or a truck, which is just so brilliant. So safe.
Real smart.
Oh, do you think we wore a helmet? No. I think back to that stuff now and I'm like, my grandma had this, my grandma's had these big farms, my uncles, and they'd have these huge pastures and these, big hills, but there was nothing to run into. Like it's just straight wide open.
Yeah.
When you start getting behind a snowmobile or a truck, you can run into anything. And maybe that's what happened to me. I don't know. Maybe that happened.
These are things that Giglio cringes at because his neck would give out in a heartbeat. So you're back in your
There's
neck.
a reason my neck and back
But he's
are the way they
trying
are
to
now.
well, if he's sitting outside.
I know. Look at him. He's very manly, sitting in his garage in the cold.
Oh.
Steve Forbes,
The-
Wake Forest head basketball coach.
The lighting in my house is terrible. That's the only reason.
Well, do you think we do this to look at you? I mean, really?
Of course.
Yeah, that's where do you think
Hey.
the YouTube numbers come from? Come on now.
Now, Coach, someone has a
Yep.
gift for you for tomorrow. Maybe you should start being a little bit nicer,
Well, I
or you
got
don't
gifts
get
too.
your gift tomorrow.
I got gifts too.
All right.
I mean,
All right.
Steve Forbes,
Hey,
Wake Forest.
I have a job to do that I have to
Yeah.
go do. Okay.
Go prep. Go prep for Saturday. We'll
So
talk
do
to
I.
you later. Just getting roasted there, Giglio. Roasted. My goodness. My goodness. Big thanks to Steve Forbes for hanging out with us. Also, big thanks to Breeze Through. Check them out online, breezethrough.com. I hope you got gas before all this snow. You're ready to go now. I'm looking outside. The sun's doing work. It's melting, Joe. Make sure you get gas. You got to unmute yourself, my dude. Unmute yourself. Now we're talking. Did you beer cave it up? You put any beers outside in the snow?
No, I have just like you, I have a beer fridge, full size.
Nah,
beer
but
fridge.
when the beers are in the snow, they taste so much better. When they've been
Oh,
cooling
dear
in the
Lord.
snow, that's real right there. I hope you all did that. You went to Breeze Through, got some beers, and stuck them outside, and you had those fresh beers. I get it. It's Natty Light time. But the Natty Light hits different if it's been sitting in a snowdrift, dude. I'm just saying. Just saying. I might need some coffee later too, but you can get all at the Breeze Through. That's what it's all about. One thing now that the roads are melting, I know what you want to do. You've been cooped up in the house. You want to get the heck out of here. What do? You head on over to Two Roosters. That's what you do, because nothing says winter weather, nothing says snow day like getting ice cream. The ice cream is so good. You're like, hell yeah, man! I get it's cold outside. I want it more cold. I want to go to Two Roosters.
Our guy Jared's undefeated on the year. I'm telling you, he needs to flip the offer.
Yeah.
The second he flips that road win offer, they will win, and we'll find out the real source of magic here.
And also, if you want to like warm it up a little bit, may I recommend the hot fudge at Two Roosters? It's very good. So find out more over at tworoosters.com. Big thanks to our friend Matt Davis at State Farm. InsureGarner.com, theoginsurance.com, or call them directly at 919-779-8277. I don't know if they have flexible flyer insurance, but I'm sure Matt Davis can look into making sure you've got flexible flyer insurance. Just a thought.
Yeah. Well, it's considering sledding is one of the reasons I ended up with back surgery in 2014. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Not recommended. Not recommended. I would recommend you contact our friends over at 1-800-Plumber. You know what's hot right now? Reliability, service, 24/7 support. And with the weather, how it's been, super, super cold, it gets warm. It's going to put your HVAC through the work, man. So contact them today. 1-800-Plumber plus air. It's in the name, folks. It's in the name. So contact them today. My hot goes to the sports phone, because the sports phone has been hot, and we're going to get to the sports phone here in a little bit. It's been keep getting email notifications, and I'm not quite sure we're going to run through all of them today. We'll probably save some for the mailbag tomorrow, but a lot of them. And then we got cold. And here's what I'm going to say about cold. There was there's a news reporter who's going viral. I happen to be friends with him. He's an NC State guy. Okay. And he did a live stand-up. And at the end of it, he said Tar Heels. And people are upset about this. Y'all, that's part of the charm. It's the rivalry. So if you're upset that a news guy live on location outside the Smith Center didn't like the way things went and just dropped a little Tar Heels in there as a known state guy, lighten up. It's all about the rivalry, man. All about the rivalry. Don't be so serious all the time. So that's your cold, you people who get offended easily. From our guy Ken, he wants to know, when do we get Giglio's dump of the day? No.
It's still the hot and cold. We haven't quite changed it yet.
Okay, fair enough. We also had some people in the comment section related to the Four Nations tournament tonight. Grabbed a low cost bet for Canada. McDavid 1 point, Kachuk 1 point plus 600. Although, as you pointed out, U.S. got some serious injuries, man. This might not end well.
Yeah. I suspect this Charlie McAvoy injury may be the end of the Four Nations. So you might want to enjoy tonight's game while we have it.
Yeah, that not pretty. From Joe Cowolf, the only AV cart we Wolfpack fans are getting this year is on a t-shirt. Yeah, or on the rowback. That's what it's all about. It's on the rowback. All right, let's get to some of the OG sports phone calls that have come in overnight.
919-444-2211. Call the OG sports phone and curse or don't.
Of course, Sports Phone is brought to you by Nature's Relief. Check them out online at naturesreliefhemstore.com, RELEAF hemstore.com. I went back and watched some of the clips from yesterday because I was on that Nature's Relief last night. I don't think it was very obvious. But then again, I could be wrong.
Did you convince one of your children to unload the dishwasher, or is that Kelly?
That's Kelly. Yeah.
It's going to give them props.
Yeah. Why she had to do it now, I don't know, but it is what it is. Let's go to the Sports Phone.
You know, for a split second there when they said it was open gym, I was like, oh, man, let's drive over there and go to the game. And when I say a split second, I mean a split second, because then I realized, like, oh, Keith is our coach, and we suck. And why would I waste my time and safety on these icy roads to go watch us get dog beat by the Tar Heels again in Chapel Hill? That being said, it's just the same thing with Dave. I mean, Keats is making $3 million a year. Dave's making $5 million. And what do they do for us? They're just thieves at this point. I mean, we might as well just give them the money. You know, they don't do anything. We suck. We look like the freaking high school replacement. I've never seen a basketball team so bad. You know, how do you go from what we did on the Final Four run in the ACC championship last year to this level in a matter of months? I mean, O'Connell can't hit the broadside of a barn and he averaged 14 points in the NCAA tournament. How is that possible? Coaching. What does this guy do in his free time? Is he in Wilmington every weekend playing happy tunes at his piano bar? I mean, just give it up and go enjoy retirement, Keats. Like, this is so bad. It can't get much worse. It really can't. I mean, if it weren't for a lowly Boston College, we have the longest losing streak in program history. And I just don't understand why we continue to let this go on. Great. ACC championship, Final Four. Give the guy a year. I get it. But it's not like it's been good. Last year was a fluke. You know, we'll take it. Don't get me wrong, I'll take it. For the next 30 years, you know, I'll take it. I'm happy. But still, I just don't understand. I mean, we're better off to throw Joe Schmo out there coached by, you know, Yo-Yo and you know, just go out there and try and do something. I mean, right now we look like the freaking crapshoot. So I'm gonna get off my high horse. I just don't understand, man. I love my school. I'm a State fan for life. I've been a State fan since birth. But it's hard. It's excruciating. And this administration continues to enable it. You know, we need Boo to make a big hire, his first big hire. I think it's got to be basketball. I really do. But anyway, love the show. Thanks, guys. Listen to it tomorrow. Have a good night. State sucks.
Yeah, that was from a 910. Speaking of open gyms, our guy Paul called in.
Hey, guys, it's Paul. When the Crypt Keeper's away, the Tar Heels will play. funny how when the mummified corpses of the Rams club aren't in the Dean Smith Center, it becomes a really wonderful atmosphere to play in for the home team. I'm sure they'll take that under advisement when they move the Smith Center off campus and have fewer seats. I'm sure more of those are going to go to students. 1,000%. Definitely.
This is why I love the sports phone, because sarcasm truly comes through in those moments. Absolutely love the sarcasm from Paul on that one. All right, let's go to a 919.
Joe's, what's up? It's Will. Both of you guys are right with the Randy Woodson situation and the financial situation and everything. So State has really just put themselves in the worst possible spot moving forward. I think we all thought they would capitalize on the Final Four run with transfers, but I think I can play better defense in my wheelchair than number one does on the court. But anyway, could use a hug. It's just been rough this season, and yeah, at least it'll be over here soon. Yay! So have a good night. Bye.
That was our guy, Will Privet. Roll pack, man. Roll pack. All-time great moment.
Can we go back to the other guy who was like, I'm going to be happy for the next 30 years?
I know.
But
I'll be happy.
Get the fuck out.
Dude, if we learned anything this week, love you, mean it. Get out. Speaking of
I'll
things
be
that happen,
happy for 30 years. Just not this one. I never said which 30 years.
oh man. Speaking of calls from the After Dark last night, this is a follow-up.
Hello, OG. 9:36 p.m. Courtesy driver calling in again. The OG call that got Giglio laughing his ass off about the neck tattoos. What if Carl Hess could see into the multiverse and got confused and saw Chris Corchiani with a tattoo, and that's the reason why he threw him and you know who out of the game? Just wondering. Thank you. Good night now.
I think Curtis is thinking about Tom Gugliotta, who was also tossed with Corchiani.
I know you're not on the Twitters anymore, so did you see our friend Kyle got the AI Corchiani with the neck tats?
No, I did. I actually had it pulled up. I was going to pull this up since we were talking about neck tattoos yesterday. What was in relation to was it Dontrez Styles has neck tattoos and Seth Trimble like went at you? It's like, what's up, right? It's like Chris Corchiani would have absolutely been a ball of fire in that situation. We got ChatGPT to imagine Chris Corchiani with neck tats, and I mean, that goes hard, man. It's not a unitard, which is unfortunate.
Close
to it. But yeah, man, I see you.
So good.
I see
so
you.
Good.
All right, let's see what else we have here from the OG Sports phone. Let's go to Jeannie called in.
Good morning, boys. Well, I sure didn't see that one coming last night. Carolina favored by 9.5. I figured they would lose by 7. But I've seen them do it many times. But you guys were right. It doesn't change anything. I'm still mad. I'm happy for the win, but I'm still mad. And I don't see them making the tournament. There's plenty of games that they should win that they probably won't. Like beat State, lose to Miami, you know. But anyway, it was a good After Dark last night, and I'll look for your podcast, your live one today. Have a good one, guys.
Jeannie kind of hitting on something that I was curious about. And we talked about this with Brendan Marks earlier in relation to like, what's the takeaway if you're a Carolina fan from last night? And really, I think what it boils down to is don't do anything stupid between now and the Duke game, and at least show up for that Duke game, defend the house, bounce back from that embarrassment at Cameron Indoor, and go from there. But like, I could see why a lot of Carolina fans are just like, nice that they beat State, but
hey.
Ain't buying
3 weeks to figure out the small ball. I like the small ball.
I know. You're all in on that small ball. This is from a 336 number.
Hey, this is a Tar Heel fan from Triad. Just curious, how you guys feel about the 2-year extension, I think, to 2030 for Keats. I'm really interested if, there's an appetite with, NC State boosters or the athletic environment there to just move on from Keats. Thanks, guys. Enjoy what you do.
I mean, there's an appetite with the fans to move on. I'm guessing there's no appetite, though, to move on because of financial reasons, which gets back to the beginning of today's program when we went live and Keats's messaging on NIL and everything else. The opportunity to get everybody on the same page should have happened this past offseason, not now, where people are just mad. I mean, Keats will be back next year, but again, we'll see how the messaging goes. And honestly, you want Boo Corrigan to have a little bit more visibility. At least I'd like to see a little bit more visibility in terms of what their plan might be, like we said at the jump, at the beginning of today's podcast. Let's see, what else do we have here? This is from a 910 number that they left the sports phone through Google Voice can only go 3 minutes. So I appreciate the people who go they're just letting it vent, man. Just letting it vent, and they're going for 3 minutes and they get cut off. And then what ends up happening typically is they realize they got cut off and then they call back to make their points in a much quicker fashion, which is what we had here from a 910 number.
Okay, I got cut off. Man, I'm long-winded tonight. But what I was trying to say is, man, maybe it's a turning point. He finally got just beat down so bad, he realized, man, I got to change. So, I mean, I got some hope, but I want to see more of the team. But they were there tonight, man. Why tonight? Is it because of the crowd? And maybe we're at fault. Comes back to the fact that maybe we just expect too much and all that stuff. I expect a lot. I mean, okay, ignore the Duke game. That was ridiculous. That was unexplainable, non-excusable, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's a turning point. We're going to have Hubert next year. They shouldn't fire him. We got too many things going on and all that. Maybe some staff changes, I'm sure, and all that. But, all right, I'm hoping it's a turning point. He changed. He did some things different. He's starting to look like a man that realized, you know what? I can do something different. Evolve or die. All right, well, I think I've rambled on long enough, and y'all have a good night, and see y'all sometime.
Evolve or die, or
I like that though. I like what he's saying. Let me try something different. And I think that's where I'm getting at with this small ball thing. Sure, the next 5 games or even the Syracuse and State game ultimately don't matter to Carolina. I get that.
Yeah.
But if you can figure out a way to play and have some confidence going into your 2 remaining chances to make the NCAA tournament, they have 2 chances. One is to beat Duke, as I said all along. Magic bullet. It's a terrible matchup. I get all those things. I understand that. But as we just saw last year, anything can happen in the ACC tournament. For real. Anything can.
Yeah.
And I won't get knocked off of that point. I do think there is a value in the next 3 weeks for Carolina to get some confidence and to play a certain way. And if you can do that, let's not act like Carolina doesn't have talent on their team.
They do have talent.
Carolina's got plenty of NIL money. They got plenty of talent.
It's
the disparate parts that has hurt them. They don't have a big. They don't have their size.
So here's the thing about that. I mean, I don't disagree. If you're going to make it work, small ball is the way to make it work. I mean, what else do you have to lose at this point?
Right.
They do have talent, but also that gets to how has the talent been utilized? And you've seen this with the development of Elliot Cadeau over the last 2 years, maybe the use of Ian Jackson this season. There's all sorts of things that people want to poke at. So you've got the talent. What do you do with the talent? And then, Carolina's got money. But, I mean, look, man, you got to stay consistent on that too. Just because you got money doesn't know you don't know what to do with the money. That you're not identifying it right. I mean, we just talked about this with Steve Forbes. They can have a proactive plan, but it all goes to shit if you are not evaluating that talent correctly and you're not bringing in the right guys, or you find yourself in, I got a plan, I got this money. And then some people just decide, well, we don't want to go there because we have our own things that are going on. Like the guy that went to BYU, right? So there's all sorts of things that might be out of your control. So it all gets back to, are you consistent? Do you look prepared? Are you getting better as the season goes on? And at both NC State and Carolina, you haven't seen incremental improvements as the season goes on. What you have seen is team get hot and then not. And so far, the only thing we've seen with Hubert Davis and a consistency was last year, where they ended up being a number 1 seed. But before that, it was wide variance, and we continue to see that this year out of Hubert Davis. And again, same thing with NC State. But hey, man, that's above my pay grade, right? You can just kind of see it. It's above my pay grade. We'll see how they go about it going forward. Clearly, nobody's really happy right now. We've got more OG Sports phone calls, but we're going to save those for the mailbag tomorrow. We actually have some mailbag specific ones as well. But we have some more NIL stuff. We got some more state stuff. We got all sorts of stuff that we'll do in the mailbag tomorrow. Big thanks to the Butcher's Market for sponsoring OG Live. They also sponsor the mailbag, which you can get the full episode at ogtrianglemedia.com. And of course, we want to thank our friends at Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. I know you're not thinking about mosquitoes right now because there's snow on the ground. But may I remind you that with all the snow and the fluctuations, that might mess with the moisture. That might mess with some funk in the crawl spaces. And that's where bugsbite.com can help you out with a moisture barrier, Joe.
I'm disappointed I didn't do today's show from the crawl space because I have a walk-in crawl space.
But what's the lighting situation down there?
It's not great, but with the 360 moisture barrier, I should be showing that off. We should at least do a commercial from down there. So
I like it.
That's my bad. I owe Hayes. Bugsbite.com. Check them out.
Think we'll be in the studio tomorrow? I think we can go to the studio tomorrow. Should be enough melting tomorrow.
Yeah, it looks like my road is actually cleared out. Jackson just left the neighborhood, so
we got odds on 2-hour delay or full cancellation for school tomorrow.
I say 2-hour tomorrow, but that might be wishful thinking.
I think it's going to be. I believe it'll be a 2-hour delay tomorrow.
Because you know what we're getting into. We're cutting into spring break now.
Yeah, I think already.
And I know there's a lot of people not happy about that. I remember that growing up.
I think Wake County already had to bail on a March 14th teacher workday.
Honestly, I feel like it's 2 days that they're working on now. So when I was growing up, we had more snow my senior year than Nome, Alaska. And our Easter, we didn't have a spring break. We had an Easter break.
Well, let me tell you something about the parents that have already made spring break plans. So they'll just make so spring break's going to happen one way or the other. So
sure.
Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for OG Live. We will see you for a mailbag tomorrow.